Hello, hello. Welcome to What's Working Now. I am your host, Katie Richardson, and I'm always here to bring you the experts who are going to help you level up your business, level up your life. We're all about finding out what's working now. And this is why I have the guest that we have today. I'm going to read you his bio because honestly, this guy's absolutely exceptional. This is Dr. Michael Turner. He's a board certified physical medicine and rehabilitation specialist with more than a decade of clinical experience with sports medicine, anti-aging medicine, men's health, and testosterone therapy. Hello, just to name a few. Also provides innovative regenerative medicine therapies like platelet-rich plasma, PRP, and prolotherapy injections. Fascinated? Go Google it. He frequently works with patients suffering from COVID, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and more. He's a graduate of Harvard, Stanford, and did his residency at the Mayo Clinic, because why wouldn't you do all three of those? Welcome to the show, Michael Turner.
Thank you, Katie. Really glad to be here. Looking forward to this very much. This is going to be great. This is going to be fun. And we're going to assist your audience, help them take their health to the next level, answer some questions, talk honestly about COVID, talk at length about some really important subjects, and hopefully just inspire and encourage people. I'm all about positivity as well. There's enough negativity in the world right now. We need some positivity. And so I'm hopeful that today I'll be able to transmit some of that to your audience.
Yeah, well, this is why I have you on the show. I was a patient of yours and I purchased one of your telehealth packages. We were having a conversation. I could not believe how honest and truthful you were as a doctor. It was really exciting for me personally that you were actually very focused on my health first and foremost, and you were doing what it takes to help me with that. And so that's why I invited you on the show. And I wanted to share that with everybody. And I think it's really rare and special in today's world to have a doctor who's so bold and courageous to speak the truth in an era where you can literally get canceled for that. And we'll probably be talking about any of those landmines that you've been avoiding. So in order to help people kind of understand a little bit more about you, who you are, how you approach both business and medicine, would you share with us the story of an experience that has really shaped who you are today?
Sure, be happy to. I think the best experience would be my experience as a student in 10th grade. Okay, this was regular public high school, California, nothing special about it, required health class. All right. And we started learning about the body. We started learning about, the heart, the lungs, the nervous system, et cetera. And I'm kind of intrigued, it's catching my attention. Funny little anecdote. I would never take notes in that class, okay? Because I'm good at just paying attention. And so the teacher was always on my case, like, Turner, you're not taking any notes, you're supposed to be a good student. Why aren't you paying attention? I was like, no, I got it. No, I'm on it. I'm up here. And he'd ask me anything and I'd tell him. And finally he backed off after a little while, but I was so engrossed. I never took a whole note in that class, but I was just dialed in every day, taking it in, right? So at one point he says, all right, you're going to write down everything you eat in a day. And we're going to write down grams of fat, grams of sugar, right? You're going to actually keep track calories, right? And at this point, I had always been an athletic kid, right? Mm-hmm. So I was on all-stars in baseball and basketball and soccer, for example, but I was always like a chubby kid too, right? So I used to wear husky size clothes. I don't know if they have husky anymore, but that was a polite way of saying it's like, you're kind of chunky,
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I remember I had a 7th grade birthday party. We went to the beach and it was like, I had trouble getting in my wetsuit. Okay, let's just put it that way. I had like,
oh man,
oh my God, 10 other kids were standing around waiting for me to get this wetsuit on. I was like a little sausage trying to get this wetsuit up. It was very embarrassing and delayed the whole party. So that was me. I had a bad habit of eating cereal late at night and eating candy bars and stuff. So I start this health class, I'm writing this all down, and it was like an eye-opening moment, right? This is a revelation. I'm going, oh my God, I had like 3 chocolate milks at recess today. That's each packing about 20 grams of sugar, right?
Oh man.
I had a Twix bar, that's knocking me down. This pizza that they serve me in the school cafeteria, this thing's got like 500 calories, it's gross, all the sodium and grease, right? And I just kind of became a new individual after that. I like clean eating. We didn't call it clean eating back then. I don't know what phrase we had for it, but I basically started eating clean, in fact, like nothing but like tuna, beans, I started running all over the place. We had some hills where I lived in California. I'm running up and down hills. I got a little weight bench from my grandpa that I inherited, this old Joe Weider weight bench with like preformed like concrete plasticized little weights on the side, right? And so I'm down there lifting weights every night and trying to get some little muscles and running. And funny thing too, anecdote, I went to Christmas one year and my uncle gave me packs of tuna because word had gotten out that I wasn't eating anything else, you know, and grandma was all upset because I wasn't eating cookies and eggnog and stuff. So my uncle's like, hey, I got you some tuna. You happy? I was like, yeah, I love it. I'm going to go for a run now. How do you like that? Yeah. So that like caught my attention. I mean, that class did everything it was supposed to do. And I just carried on from there. At that point, I became very self-motivated. I'm an overachiever, I would say, by nature, as you may have guessed. So I kind of took that into my health and wellness realm. So I started doing all this research, right? It's like, okay, I'm lifting weights, you know, 5 times a week. Is that too much? I'm sore. How much time do I need off? How many grams of protein should I take? How much sleep do I need? You know, should I put a banana in my smoothie? Should I put a raw egg in my smoothie? Is that safe? You know, just all of these questions started just snowballing and building on one another. So fast forward, I built my career out of that, essentially, my own interest in health and wellness. I was that guy in medical school who had like Ziploc bags of supplements and vitamins tucked in my scrubs. And
Wow.
I'd be taking those on break, you know, in the hospital. I was that guy who I would be doing yoga stretches and stuff in the sleep room. Because when you're at the hospital, there's like a little dormitory that you basically sleep in, right?
Okay.
So I'm in there doing, people come in, I'm doing yoga stretches and burpees and stuff in there. And I was always a little weird like that, but man, I love it. I love to feel healthy. I'm kind of obsessed by the question, what would it feel like to be as healthy as I can possibly be at my age, right? I'm 46. I feel great. I'm not trying to be my 26-year-old self. I can't be that, right? I'm not trying to be somebody else's 46-year-old self. I can't be that. I can only be me. But I want to know, and I want to experience today, what would it feel like for Michael Turner to be as healthy as possible at age 46? I want that mental acuity, that energy, that strength, that dynamism, etc. And so that's what I strive for every day. And I love to share that with people.
This is so fantastic to hear. I'm a big believer, if you're going to learn something from a coach, a mentor, an expert in any field, that they've got to be living the things that they're teaching you. If that's incongruent, then you can't actually believe what they're telling you. And so when you tell me that you made this discovery in the 10th grade, you made active changes in your life, and you continue to live those right now today, that just deepens my trust in you as a doctor and the information that you're about to share with us. So thank you for sharing that example. I think it's really important for people to remember, whatever their business is, right? Are you living your own principles? Are you putting into practice the things that you're teaching other people, or are you just running your mouth and telling everybody else what they should do and you're doing something else over here? So thank you for being an example of what you teach and do for people.
Sure. Yes, of course. I agree.
Yeah.
Already.
Yeah. So one of the things that has drawn me to you and caused us to have multiple conversations is the fact that you're willing to speak up, and in a world and an environment where especially people in the medical field are being pressured to share one message and pressured to not say another message. What are some things that you're doing to really, and like, I feel like I'm walking around landmines right now. I don't know what I'm allowed to say. I don't know what I'm not allowed to say. And I honestly, I just want to go for it. So what are some things that you're doing to be able to continue to put your message out in the world and do it in a way where you can actually help and serve people, but at the same time, not get shut down? What are some things that you're having to do?
Yeah, well, it's been a fine line, unfortunately, but I will say that I'm very motivated. I'm a person of conviction, you know, and so when I became a doctor, as we all do, we swore an oath to help our patients, right? And in fact, one of the things that made the Mayo Clinic great, and which is where I did my residency, is they have this saying, the needs of the patient come first. Okay. And if you train at Mayo, you know that saying. In fact, they have a handout that they give you that fits right in your pocket with the core values and vision and history of the Mayo Clinic. They're really big on their culture, which is phenomenal. That's what's made them a tremendous organization. It's kind of a business study model as well, right? About culture and values and history and all that bit. So they're outstanding on that. But the needs of the patient come first. So in my mind, the needs of the patient come first. Now, the needs of the patient coming first these days sometimes have run at cross currents to, let's say, what the government wants to tell us about COVID, or what Twitter wants to allow us to talk about, or YouTube or something like that. And if that becomes the problem, then I will always side with the patient because they're my focus and they're my concern. That's why I got into medicine, right? I didn't sign in for medicine to work for the government. The government doesn't pay my paycheck. I work for the people and I enjoy to do that. So unfortunately, lately, as regards COVID, people of like mind as myself, medical professionals with good heart, good intentions, and who are patient-centered are running into these currents of, frankly, censorship. We'll just use the word flat out. It gets dressed up in different ways. They'll say, we're combating COVID misinformation. We're doing something good for the public because we don't want this misinformation out there, but it's censorship by any other word. And there's several problems that I have with that. We can discuss this more at length, but the first problem I have is who defines what's good COVID knowledge and what's information? Who defines that? And are those scientists and doctors? Are those bureaucrats and politicians? Are those drug company executives? And whoever's deciding that, who is influencing them? Who or what is influencing them? What money trail, what political contributions, what hopes for reelection, etc. Right? So let's just start there. The second problem is, even if you take a great team of doctors, let's say, and physicians who are patient-centered, and you create a circle of knowledge and you say, this is good COVID information, and nothing else outside of that will be allowed to be propagated, at that point, you've squelched science, because science must progress. And it only progresses in the context of discussion, dissension, disagreement. Hopefully it's done politely and it's based on data, but there has to be some sort of dynamism and back and forth and float to actually progress it. And the minute we draw a line around it, we don't have science anymore. We have institutional dogma. Why is that a problem? Well, for many reasons, but let's just start for patient care. The first reason it's a problem is because patients will suffer, right? If something comes out tomorrow that has possibility to be helpful for COVID, but we can't discuss and debate it vis-a-vis current treatments, then it will not become available to patients, right? So we've calcified and solidified, unfortunately, and set ourselves back in what we're offering patients. And that should never happen. So that's a grave problem as well, I think. So what am I doing about that? I mean, I created a guide called How to Prevent and Treat COVID. Let's start there, right? Kind of audacious.
That's how I found you.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a PDF and I have a blog post, and it's the patient-centered view of what is everything that you can do, Mary Q Public, Joe Public, to keep you and your family safe from COVID. How can we keep you out of the hospital? I will tell you everything I know in good conscience to do that. Even if it sounds mundane, like vitamin C, even if it sounds radical, like ivermectin, I don't care. I will tell it to you in one place with links where you can see and get these things online, because that's my commitment to you. And frankly, it's run me afoul of some investigations and things at times, but this is the price we're paying right now, unfortunately.
Yeah. One of the things that you said to me, and you share this in your PDF, is like whether or not you get the vaccine, that's one way to prevent COVID, but there's a whole host of other ways, and nobody ever talks about this. And whether or not we're talking about COVID or just an overstressed CEO, entrepreneur who maybe has put their health on the back burner, what are some things that you advise people to do? And I want everyone to really listen and pay attention to Dr. Turner, because there's so much wisdom in what you have to share with us. So what are some of those things that people can do to both protect themselves from getting COVID or anything, and really optimize their health?
Yes, absolutely. Let's focus on four concepts for you. And this will be fun. If you want to stop and interject, that feel free. But we're going to talk about strengthening your immune system. Doesn't matter whether against COVID or anything else. And step number one would be adequate sleep. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the role of sleep in the immune system. So turns out that the quality of your immune system today is largely determined by the quality of your sleep last night, right? There's direct relationship there. It's a quick feedback loop. For example, there's a very famous study done where they took perfectly healthy and perfectly well-rested people. Okay, just for one night, they restricted them to 4 hours of sleep, got them up early, took some blood, isolated one of the most important white blood cells, which is called the natural killer cell. Put the natural killer cells in a petri dish, bombarded them with different kinds of viruses and bacteria to see how active they would be. And the punchline is, these perfectly healthy, perfectly well-rested people up till that point, after just 4 hours of sleep, their natural killer cell activity dropped off 30%.
Get out. 30%.
Yes.
That's significant.
That's
one night.
Extraordinarily significant. Yes. One
Yeah.
night. So what would a week of chronic sleep do, right? Much less a lifetime.
Yeah. Right.
So, and then also understanding that your immune system does not just help you against what you think of as infections, viral, bacterial infections. It also is an anti-cancer agent. A lot of people don't quite realize that your immune system is an anti-cancer mechanism of your body, because cancer doesn't just hit you when you're 75. Okay. Cancer is going on all the time in your body. Right now, you, and every one of your listeners has a certain number of cancerous cells that are produced on a daily basis. The reason it's not a problem is because we have a healthy immune system that will recognize and destroy them. If our immune system flags, the rate of cancer cell increase will rise, and some will start evading detection, and pretty soon we'll have a lump somewhere or a growth somewhere or something else. And it can just be thought of as a failure of the immune system in its surveillance and destructive tasks. So that's putting another exclamation point on it as well. And strong immune system is an anti-cancer immune system. Yeah, so getting good sleep. This is another reason why if you start to lack sleep on a chronic basis, it's fairly common. People talk about, oh, I'm getting a scratchy throat, I'm getting sniffly and all that. It's because, you're running to the burning the candle both ends, running yourself ragged, and your immune system's down. This is also why if you do get sick, you naturally feel tired. Okay, this is a good thing, right? You don't just feel sick, you feel sick and tired because your body is naturally trying to make you sleep more. There are literally molecules released in your brain called cytokines that create a sedation effect. And your body's trying to tell you, hey, put me to sleep. Because it turns out, Katie, that when you're asleep, that's when your body mainly fights the infection, not when you're awake. That's also kind of a punchline and a new idea for some people, right? If you have XYZ sickness or COVID, you're thinking in your mind, you're thinking, oh, my body's fighting this thing 24/7. It's not quite like that. It's heavily weighted towards sleep, right? To just throw a number out, let's give it the 80-20 rule. Let's say 80% of you getting over the infection is actually when you're asleep, not when you're awake. And the reason is your body has to create new white blood cells and new antibodies and pump those out into circulation, right? You can think of it as a numbers game. It's all about the virus or the bacteria or the cancer cells multiplying and trying to take over, and your immune system needing to do the same thing. So where do the new white blood cells come from that need to be thrown out into the fray, right? Where do the new antibodies come from? Your body has to actually three-dimensionally physically synthesize something new and put it out into the circulation. And that happens in your bone marrow, and that mainly happens when you're asleep. So another way to, it's similar to a growth spurt. Just like children grow mainly when they're asleep, not when they're awake, right? And they have greater sleep requirements. Therefore, in a similar way, you can think of fighting an infection like an immune system growth spurt that's needed. So that's the key idea there. Getting lots of sleep. If you're sick, especially getting sleep. So when I talk to my COVID patients, they're like, oh, I'm tired all the time, I'm napping. I'm like, fantastic. Keep it up, brother. Don't stop. I was like, what? That's not a problem. That's good. I said, I want you to get emotionally excited about putting your head on the pillow and falling asleep. Okay.
Oh, I love that.
I want you napping at the drop of a hat. If you're sick, I want you to get excited about that, right? And of course, it's hard for overachievers and perfectionists like ourselves, right? We're like, oh, we're always trying to do more, be more, and we're thinking I'm lazy and I got to-do lists and people are depending on me. But that's actually counterproductive thinking, because the more you delay the sleep and getting over it, the more you prolong this whole thing, right? And the more you're running at 70% or 80% of you. So get the sleep, put the dang infection behind you and move on.org. That's the idea.
Okay. Let's get sleep. Clearly, lots of evidence there to support getting sleep. I love that. I'm a big believer in sleep myself. What else do we have?
Okay, cool. So part 2 of 4 would be exercise, right? So we all know exercise is good for us. Almost goes without saying, but just to put a little plug on that point, cardio, I'm specifically speaking of cardio, let's say 20 to 25 minutes a day. Turns out that if you do some cardio, that's actually stimulatory for the immune system. So again, if I were to draw your blood before and after cardio, I would document higher circulating levels of white blood cells in the aftermath, up to maybe 2-3 hours afterwards. Right. It's interesting.
Okay.
So this reminds me of an anecdote. When I was a kid, I remember I was visiting my dad, and I was sick. I don't know what, flu, whatever. I was about 10, 12, kind of feeling crummy, wanting to lay down, take naps, which is all fine. But then at one point he's like, you need to get outside and take a walk. I was like, Dad, oh, I ache, I hurt. He's like, no, son, you need to get outside and take a walk. I was like, Dad, don't make me. He's like, no, we're taking a walk, right? So he gets me out. He makes me walk up and around the neighborhood and this and that. And you know what? I felt better. I was like, oh my gosh, I kind of felt better. I had a little bit of burst and a little wind in my sails, right? Got some fresh air. I was like, I felt better. I was just in this funk, like laying in bed all day, just staring at the ceiling bored, and all of a sudden,
Yeah.
I swear, like a walk every day started doing me a lot of good. And I never forgot that. And when I learned this in med school about how you literally have more white blood cells in circulation after you exercise, I was like, he was onto something. So.
Okay, wait, really quick. So if somebody has COVID or some other illness and they're needing sleep, would you also advise them to go for a walk every day in
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
combination? Okay,
Sure,
cool.
absolutely. Right. Like, so when you're not sleeping, because you can only sleep so much. I mean, when you're alert and your mind's just sitting there racing, get out of
Yeah,
bed, take a walk, right? Do
love it.
some light cardio of whatever form. Sure. Very
Cool.
good.
Awesome.
Next up, we can talk about things that you eat, right? So, people have an idea, they may not know the specifics, but you have an idea that what you eat affects your immune system, obviously, and turns out to be quite potent. So certain things like garlic, for example, onions, mushrooms, green veggies, all those are potently stimulatory for the immune system. On the other hand, sugar is known to be inhibitory for the immune system. So trying to be healthy or dealing with an active infection pays to, adjust your palate a little bit in that regard. And the last,
can I jump in and share a personal experience? I had a son who was fighting off it was called molluscum, some virus that it just wasn't going away. And the doctor didn't have anything for it. And I actually created my own protocol for him. I completely cut out sugar. And I started having him drink green juice every day. And literally within days, this infection that was spreading on his skin just started to recede. And I think sugar was like the biggest component to that. Like his body just didn't have what it needed to fight it off. And that's a big one. And we've noticed that in our family. If someone's starting to feel sick, it's like, what are you eating? Pay attention to what you're eating. Yeah. And the same is true for any of us, right? We're trying to be at our optimal best. And what are you putting in your body? What are you putting in your mouth? What's the fuel that you're trying to run off of?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, very well spoken, and insightful that you found that. Absolutely, very true. And so what you put in your mouth on a daily basis will affect how you feel and strength of your immune system and how well your brain's functioning, all numbers of types of parameters. The other thing I would mention would be certain supplements. So there are certain supplements known to help the immune system and even to have direct activity against COVID. I'll just throw out a couple of the most important ones. So zinc, right? Turns out zinc, for example, directly inhibits replication of the COVID virus. Okay, COVID gets in your body. Yes, the COVID virus gets in your body and uses something called RNA polymerase, which is naturally present in your cells, to do its dirty business of replicating its little mRNA strand and creating more virus. Well, zinc directly inhibits RNA polymerase. That's the punchline, and is therefore quite potent. So if in the case of an active infection, research protocols would suggest up to 100 milligrams of zinc a day. You're not going to get that just in diet. You're going to need a supplement. But there's a big difference for people suffering from COVID, taking no zinc or taking 100 milligrams of zinc. You're putting your body in a much better position to inhibit the viral replication. Another example that's very notable would be vitamin C, also vitamin D, as you may have heard about. Vitamin C, we know that has tremendous roles in the immune system. Vitamin D, we're learning more recently the roles that has in the immune system, and there's been a lot of interesting research. So if you just Google like vitamin D and COVID, you'll find there's all this interesting research where they basically have categorized people, the lower vitamin D status, the higher the hospitalization and death rate, and then the mid-range people were here, and then the highest levels, like greater than 40, had the lowest, complication rates, et cetera. There's a very linear relationship between vitamin D levels in your body and the effects of COVID on you as well. So in my document, I go over specific supplements at specific dosages, but that's an overview of the concept.
It's so great, Dr. Turner, because, people get really worked up about so many different things around COVID in particular. And you're approaching it from a very no nonsense place where you're showing people very proven path to health and wellness, COVID or not, right? Just a proven path to health and wellness. And one of the potential obstacles in your way is what you have for people essentially is work. Like, here, you have health problems. Let me hand you some work. And what I've noticed about you is, because it would be very easy for you to just say, do these things and that's it. But you go into why that makes sense, why it's going to benefit you, And as you do that, like I see the switch that happens in my mind. Not only do I know it's important, I understand why it's important, which then makes it interesting for me to go and make those changes or do those things, whatever they are. And
Yeah.
so I think that has a lot of application for any entrepreneur. Like we can say and share our wisdom, our products, our services, and be annoyed at people that they're not listening to us. But it's also our job to help them understand why it's going to create the result that they want. And you do this with a smile on your face and really fun stories. And, you know, the human body is a very complex system that you spent so many years learning and understanding on a really deep level. And then you show up and in a really simple yet profound way, you illustrate to your clients how to make these changes and why it's going to create the results that they want. And I wanted to point that out because I think it's so important. Sometimes we can get kind of trapped in our own brilliance and frustrated that people maybe are not listening to us. And you've done it. You're teaching the very foundational principles that people need to understand in order to believe you and take action on it. And I think it's just absolutely incredible.
Wow. Well, thank you, Katie. Thank you very much. It's a great point you raise, and just expand on that a little bit, and maybe help our audience kind of implement that in their own lives to a degree. I was a school teacher, actually. So before I went to
makes sense.
before I went to medical school, I was a full-time classroom teacher for 2 years. So my first year was 5th grade. I was fresh out of college, 21 years old, fresh out of Stanford. I knew I wanted to take some time off before medical school, but I was just too tired of studying and taking tests and things like that. And I was thinking about what was fun. And I had done some tutoring, and I had also worked as a summer camp counselor. So I'm thinking, all right, this is great. I could be a teacher. I got a buddy who was teaching, and he's like, you come be my roommate. We'll get you an interview at the school district. Cool. So I was down in California, and I had like 35 kids, 5th grade, all subjects. It's like, wow, major.
Yeah, 5th grade is not easy.
Oh my gosh, right. Like trial by fire. I was like up late at night grading papers, making lesson plans, in there on the weekend. I mean, I have so much respect for teachers. It's not even funny. Spending my own money to try to decorate the classroom because they're always under budget. I mean, all of that they deal with.
Wow.
And the next year I taught at 7th and 8th grade private school in Atherton, California. So this was one of the wealthiest areas of the Bay Area. This is where kids' parents were literally venture capitalists. Kids were getting dropped off in chauffeured cars and stuff at school. All of this. Taught 7th and 8th grade science, loved it. In any case, I've always brought that little teacher hat forward with me into my medical care, right? So I look at it like part of my job is to download this information I have in my mind to you. Because if you knew what I knew, right, then you'd be as motivated and as capable to take care of yourself as I am motivated and capable to try to take care of you, right? But we need a transfer of will. We need a transfer of knowledge. We need a transfer of capability, because I'm not always going to be here, right? So I'm trying to put that in your mind and make you as independent and proactive and self-started as possible. That's how I'm looking at it every time I'm talking to my patients. And this is also one of the beauties of medicine. And I think we can extrapolate this into any kind of communication. Let's just say it could be workplace, being an entrepreneur, et cetera, right? So it comes down to a lot of what I do has to do with behavior change, right? Yeah. Which is going to come down to getting in that person's head, and it's going to come down to communication. So I may know, for example, let's just say patient wants to lose weight, okay? And they're doing 0 exercise, okay? Yeah. I know in our minds that in order for them to lose weight successfully, they're going to have to start moving their body, amongst other things, but exercise is going to have to come into this. Okay, so it will not work for me just to tell them, ma'am, you need to start exercising. Okay, because they don't exercise right now, and there are reasons they don't exercise right now. And if I don't understand those reasons, then this is just bouncing off of, a deaf surface, and she will continue to not exercise as she has not exercised for the last 50 years of her life. So that will go nowhere. So the first thing I have to do is get in her mind, right? And understand where she's at, how she got there, why it's working for her, because somehow in her mind, not exercising is considered to be the best option. Otherwise, she wouldn't be doing it, right? No one's actively working for their own best interest. So somehow it's satisfying something, but also you have to understand there's of course some ambivalence because they're going to be and they realize that they probably might, should, need to make some changes. So there's a little ambivalence. So your job is to like work with the ambivalent part, but you have to understand where their hesitation is and where it comes from. So this is the art of medicine and the art of communication and behavior change. And frankly, I love it. So in my mind, I know this person's got to exercise, but what's that going to look like for her? I have to personalize that suggestion, right? So there's a major difference between someone who's 50, let's say, and has never exercised in his or her life, never gone to the gym, never played organized sports, okay? Or the guy who is a former college athlete who just got lazy 10 years ago because he got depressed because of whatever, and he put on a pot belly. But for that guy, I can immediately call him to a higher level of action, right? He's got muscle memory, he's got drive, he knows what it is to sweat, he knows what it is to get up early, et cetera. And I'm going to start him off right here at this level, right? This other person, I've got to start at a totally different level. And maybe the first thing I do is like, you know what? Let's just get out of the chair and walk out and check the mail every day. Let's just start there. Let's just start with you getting out of the house and checking the mail every day. All right. Does that sound like reasonable to you? We got to get some buy-in. You have to have some agreement as well. You can't just tell them,
yes,
I want you to go to the gym 3 times a week. You can be like, how does that sound for you? And I don't stop till they give me a yes. If there's, equivocation and hesitancy, then we haven't connected yet. So I'll downgrade it, I'll shift it. And then finally, when I get them giving me this, then it's like, okay, we've got some buy-in. And then it's like, okay, you told yourself what you're going to do. I didn't tell you, you told yourself. We had a conversation. I laid out some options. You told yourself, okay, I'm willing to walk to the mailbox this week. Great. Well, that sounds good. Let's start there. And I'll follow up with you next time. And I'm going to ask you, how are you doing walking in the mailbox? And then this further gets into failure and setbacks, because that's inevitable, because Sally, who needed to walk in the mailbox every day, didn't do it. She only did it 4 days a week. So then it's like, how do you deal with setbacks, and what's her self-talk, what's her inner dialogue, and how much does she get down on herself? Like all of that. We can talk about that more, but these discussions around like knowing who you're talking to, what got them there. And then it's like, you can put a metaphor of a chef. I would say it's almost like you got to serve up the most palatable option for them. Right? It has to be individualized, it has to be palatable. Another way you can look at it is like, you're a guide in a forest. They're lost in a swamp. And I've got to throw out a little stone for them to walk on and say, hey, step on this stone and follow me to safety. If I throw the stone too far, that's out of reach for them. They're not interested. If they don't trust me, they're not going to follow the stone. They're going to keep looking around and being scared and confused. So I got to get them to trust me. I got to throw the right stone at the right distance for them to take one baby step forward on the path. Then we regroup and I throw them out another stone. That's another way to look at it. So
I love the analogies. I love the stories. And, for anybody who is selling a product or service that requires behavior change, it's like one of the hardest things to do. And again, you're doing it very well. And it sounds like you're very conscious of the fact that the battle that's in front of you, and you know how to approach it, and you know how to meet people where they're at and just take them one step ahead of where they are. When I think about all the landmines that are around you in the world of COVID and medicine and all the restrictions that are being put on doctors and requirements, I think about, there's something that's driving you, Dr. Turner, to move past all of that, right? What is it that really motivates and drives you in your, I'm going to say profession, but it seems like this is so much more than just a profession for you. So what is it that really drives you to navigate all of this and help you to continue to be so bold and courageous and to speak up?
Yes. Great point. You're right. It is more than a profession for me. And deep inside, the answer is God's love. Katie, that's the answer. It's God's love that's motivating me. The best way I understand it, the best way I'm trying to live it out. When I look at people, for example, I believe that no one's created on accident, and no one's created without gifts and without talents that they're meant to bring into the world and share. If we just look at the natural world around us, everything has a role. The ant has a role, the dolphin, the vulture, the grizzly bear, etc. Stands to reason that every person has a role as well, right? So one way you can think of it is we're all on a journey of discovery ideally, in which we get connected to what's my purpose for actually being here on planet Earth, right? I'm pretty sure I'm not supposed to just be taking up space and breathing oxygen and, annoying other people and battling for resources with other people. It's like, there's got to be something more to that. So we try to tap into that. And I believe that God created each person unique, special. I mean, we see our uniqueness in our thumbprints and our iris scans, right? No two people are exactly alike. And even identical twins aren't exactly alike because they've had different experiences, different psyches, different personalities. So there's never been a person like you, Katie, and there never will be again. This is so powerful and amazing to think about. And so each person's brought into the world unique, special, with a role to play. We have to discover what that is. I feel like I've discovered my role. I love it. I educate, I empower, I teach, I do medicine. I kind of wear a lot of hats. I got my teacher hat. I got my Tony Robbins hat. I got my straight up doctor hat. I got my, nutritional Gold's Gym personal trainer hat. I got a lot of different hats, but I love it. I feel like I found my purpose. I mean, yeah. I can't stop. So I'm too happy. I'm too fulfilled. Once you found that, you can't stop. Come on. You're living your dream at that point. So I'm honestly living my dream, doing what I'm doing. And I'm trying to put out some love into the world in that way, in a practical way, right? Because talk is cheap. That's the other thing, right, Katie? Talk is cheap. Yeah. It's like your kids. You got kids. I've got kids. You tell them you love them, and that means a lot, but you got to show it, of course, on a daily basis as well. And that means even more, right? It's the quality time, it's the acts of service, the things like that. So that's what's driving me. I'm trying to show my love for people in a practical sense, and this is what I'm doing.
Wow. Absolutely beautiful. I love it. I really appreciate you being so personal and sharing that where that drive comes from. And I totally resonate with that big time. Before we hopped on, you mentioned that you were just on a TV show and sharing a lot of your information. Something I've noticed about you is you're so abundant in sharing your wisdom, knowledge, experience, and you don't really hold back. And you're actively looking for other ways to help people, to serve them, to share, to get the message out. What are some of the things that are working right now in your business when it comes to getting more exposure and getting more people hearing all of the wonderful things that you can share with them?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I'm growing in that sense right now too. So I'm ramping up my business side. My doctor side and all that's been well developed. My business side is actively growing right now. So for example, I got a publicist about 2 months ago, and she's been amazing, and she's getting me some different spots. And I've started to hire a team of people to get my social media consistent and such. So I'm actively in the throes of all that right now. I don't have all those answers, but I'm working hard on it every day to try to get the message out there. And very glad to talk to you about it and have this chance, and actually put a plug for someone who was a former guest. You had a guy on from Podcast Multipliers, I think, a little bit back ago. This guy's out of Idaho, and
Josh Tapp.
Yes. So when I was researching you, Katie, I was Google stalking you a little bit. I went through some of your old podcasts, and I saw this guy. He was talking about podcast multipliers, this and that, and I go, I could use some of that. So actually, I hired him about a month ago.
Oh, so good.
You should get a little kickback or something. It was from your podcast.
That's awesome. But what I'm hearing you say is like you spend a lot of time really developing your art and honing that and becoming exceptional. And like you said, you've done it in lots of different areas. Not only are you practiced in medicine, you're a very good teacher and you're quite exceptional at that. And the other things that you talked about, and you've figured out how to bring all of those things together and to have a really powerful message. And now's the time for you to be doing things like getting on podcasts and getting on TV shows, because you have a cohesive, important, relevant message that needs to be broadcast in the world. So you're right where you need to be. And that is what's working right now, right? Is taking that developed and honed skill set and message and sharing it in all of the different distribution channels that are out there.
Yeah. And I think applicable to your audience would be this idea of finding your purpose, right? Finding really where your joy is at, having integrity with what you're doing, and then trusting that and running with that. You have to be your own biggest fan in a sense, but it's not fake it till you make it. There has to be and integrity. You have to believe in yourself. You can't be faking anything. People see through that, so you find your most authentic self and you run with it because you know that that's what you're here to do. And you could be an amazing general contractor who is here to create beauty, right, at a good cost for people. And you could be you could be Steve Jobs. I respect the guy so much. He had this passion for beauty and excellency and design, right? And I respect that. And I respect Michael Phelps, who's an Olympic athlete who trained himself for years, hours in a pool, just because he was trying to bring his authentic self to the world in the most honed, best possible form. You have to respect that. And all of the people who are out there running small businesses, trying to do the same thing, bring their vision to life in some productive way for the world. I love it. And I take my hat off to every one of them. And I always enjoy learning from them. And yes, you got to believe in yourself and bring it out. The world needs it.
Amen. Yeah, that was super good. 100%. Dr. Turner, this has been absolutely amazing. I have a few short format questions for you now.
Okay.
So I'm really fascinated by people's habits, and what's something that you do consistently every day?
Good point. I try to do 4 things consistently every day. I'm not always successful, but this is my goal, right? And I will share them all. So this is really interesting. So number 1 is connect with God every day. Somehow there's a lot of ways to do that, right? Number 2, eat good food every day. I'm a foodie. It's like, if I go on vacation, I kind of define my vacation by certain meals that I had in certain places, right? I can remember, oh man, that place had amazing, chicken soup. This other place, the creme brulee was outstanding. And then I went over here, had this mango juice, and la-di-da. So I try to eat good food every day. And actually, I kind of got this one from my stepdad, who was going through fairly serious bout with prostate cancer. And his oncologist said, you know what? He was talking about living a healthy life and all this stuff. And one of the things he said was, anticipate and do something pleasurable every day. Okay. And that really resonated with me. I'm like, wow, I'm going to take that and run with it. Anticipate and do something pleasurable. Not just do it, but anticipate it, right? Because there's satisfaction and anticipation of it. So anyway, for me, anticipating doing something pleasurable every day is actually eating good food every day. So I may be,
I love it.
I may be in a hurry, but at some point that day, I'm going to try to eat some actual quality food and really sit down and enjoy it. So I'm trying to connect with God every day. I'm eating good food every day. Third thing is I do something physically hard. Do something physically hard every day, something that pushes myself a little bit. It could be as simple as a set of push-ups to failure. If that's all I have time for, that's fine. It could be as simple as stretching, right? Sometimes I only have 5-10 minutes in my day because, like you, I got a family, I got a business, I got this and that, we got responsibilities. I can't go to the gym for an hour and a half every day. I don't have those luxury, but I am going to do something physically hard every day, because just that discipline and that routine teaches me to push my boundaries. It teaches me to challenge myself. It teaches me to not quit. It teaches me to hang in there, right? And those are attributes and characteristics and mindsets that are applicable to all aspects of life. If we're never doing anything hard, we're getting soft, we're getting comfortable. If we're in business and we're never doing anything hard and challenging and risk-taking, et cetera, we're going to be yesterday's news, So I start that practice with my physical body and say, I'm going to do something physically hard every day. And the final thing is, I want to learn something every day. I want to learn something every day. Just yesterday, I was learning about colors. Colors are fascinating. And I said, I want to develop my color vocabulary a little bit more, right? I don't have a well-developed color vocabulary. Most women have an awesome color vocabulary, by the way. Shout out to all you ladies, because you've been learning about, fashion and design and paint colors and dress colors and things like. Most guys, I don't think, have much well-developed color vocabulary. I certainly didn't. So I was like, okay, well, what's chartreuse? Anyway, and I'm like doing research on RBG color schemes, right? On data, the digital. And if you combine green and yellow, I think then that's your chartreuse, and, this and that. And then if you take your violet and you put a little more red on it, then that's where you get, indigo or purple. There's a bunch of stuff like that. Anyway, I was kind of getting into that a little bit. So I try to learn something new every day.
Super cool.
Would be my 4th thing.
Yeah, so good. I love it. Thank you for sharing all of those with us.
Okay.
Usually I find guests like you are voracious readers. And is there a book, maybe it's on your nightstand or maybe you gift it frequently, that you find yourself revisiting?
Well, yes, the Bible is a book that I most revisit.
Love it.
But apart from that, the book Unbroken made a huge
Mm,
impact on me. Did you read this book? Are you
I
familiar
have
with it?
not. No.
Oh my gosh, Katie, please take a look at it. Tell me what you think about it. This
I got
book.
credits on my Audible, so
This book was amazing. It was a page turner. You're gonna have to
mm,
dedicate some time because I doubt you'll be able to put it down. From the minute I started reading this book, I'm going, wow. I tend to be a fan of documentaries, true life stories, and this was
yeah.
one of the ultimate true life stories of perseverance, of character, what this guy went through. Just the short teaser is he was a person who survived the longest in an open raft at sea ever in history.
Wow.
And yeah, and he was in World War II. The guy's first name was Louis. I can't remember. Zamperini, Louis Zamperini. He was in World War II. He got shot down in the Pacific. So part of the story is him just surviving in a raft and like trying to grab seagulls and trying not to starve to death and dehydrate while his 2 or 3 raft partners were dying. All of this. The Japanese came and strafed the boat several times, tried to sink the boat. Bullets were plopping in the water all around them. They had to bail out. There were sharks, all of that. But that's only part of the story, because then he gets captured as a Japanese prisoner of war. He spends time in POW camps where they try to get him to recant. They torture him. They want to drag him out to speak against the United States and against the war effort on Japanese TV. They'll say they'll let him go if he would do that. He refuses. They put him back in the hole, torture him some more. Meanwhile, yes, you can't make this stuff up. Meanwhile,
No.
the US government, after he's MIA for 2 or 3 years or something, they're like, all right, we're going to close the books on this. They go down and knock on mom's door in Southern California. They were Italian immigrants, humble people. They knock on the door and say, we thank you for your son's service. He's been missing in action. We're going to presume killed in action, or the Pacific, here's the American flag and here are the papers and all that. Meanwhile, mom goes, no, she goes, deep in my heart, I know he's still alive. She goes, I ignored those papers. I refused to believe it. Deep in my heart, I knew he was still alive. Because he was, Katie. Then he pops out.
Mom always knows.
It was unbelievable. So then there's finally like him getting out of the POW camp, him reuniting with the family. Then the final part is his own journey of restoration and healing for his soul. Okay, because you can imagine the PTSD that this guy went through, right?
Yeah.
So he's back in LA. He got married, but his marriage is falling apart. He's arguing with his wife all the time. He's drinking too much, becoming an alcoholic, angry at the world, right?
Yeah.
He works through his own process of getting right with God, actually, letting stuff go. And then he embarks on a journey to connect with the guy who was his chief torturer in prison and let the guy know that he forgives him. And that's the last part of the book. So he actually goes back to Japan to look for this guy and find him and have a heart-to-heart about everything. It's amazing.
Wow. Holy cow. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. We travel every now and then. We're driving in the car and I'm always looking for books or podcast series to listen together with the whole family. I don't know. That might be a little intense for some of my youngers, but that sounds absolutely fascinating and like a really important lesson for everybody to learn. So thank you. That was amazing. Have you received some advice along the way that has really served you and you would be willing to share with us?
Oh, sure. Let me think of maybe the best thing for you guys, your audience. Something that comes to mind lately is to give people the benefit of the doubt, to assume good intentions. I think this is so necessary lately. There's a lot of acrimony, in the political climate and stuff. And there's a lot of us versus them and basically tribalism. And if like, who are you? And if you're not with me, then you're against me and you must have bad motives. And ultimately, you can't ever judge another person's motives. All you can judge is what they do. But so many times we take what they do and then we try to impugn motives to them. And we're often wrong. And it's not really our place to do that, right? It's not really even fair to the other person. And so I think giving people the benefit of the doubt and assuming good intent. And another way, I came across a quote recently and it said, never attribute to malice what can adequately be explained by incompetence. Okay. And there's a lot of truth to that. Sometimes people are just incompetent in what they do. Maybe they're overwhelmed in a moment of time. They're not necessarily trying to be bad people, but we want to jump and we want to attribute things to malice, but we should be hesitant to do that. Sometimes it's just incompetence, even at its worst. So that's been important for me and helpful for me.
Yeah,
in
I love
this
it.
current age. Yeah.
Great advice. Great advice. Well, Dr. Turner, this has been a fantastic conversation. I know there's a lot of people who have heard you share a lot of this wisdom. They want more from you. They can go to michaelturnermd.com. And in the show notes, I've even got a link for you for getting that PDF that Dr. Turner talked about earlier. Are there other ways that you want to share with people how they can best connect with you? Could you actually just share a couple of the services? I know you're not here to promote your services, but could you at least, if somebody is wanting some of your help specifically, what are some of the services and ways that you can help them?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'd be happy to. One of them would be anti-aging services. You could think of it as aggressive preventative care. You could think about it as proactive health and wellness concepts, right?
Cool.
So people often work with me. They have their primary care. They have a good relationship with their primary care. That's great. I'm not that person. I'm not trying to interfere with that at all. But they'll come and work with me because number one, I spend more time with them. Number two, I explain things more thoroughly. And number three, we work together at a more advanced level and a more proactive and preventative level to try to get them healthy and keep them that way, right? And so there are research-based concepts that can be pursued: advanced level testing, supplements, different sorts of things that fall in the category of slowing down the aging process. It's not mysterious. We know what drives aging. It's not just one thing, it's several, but there's DNA damage, there's poor nutrition, there's inflammation, there's chronically high blood sugar, there's sedentary lifestyle, all of these things. So we can just line those up and personalize for you. Where do you stand? Where are you doing well? Let's say red light, green light, yellow light, right? Where do we need to make a few changes? And let me listen to you and let me serve up that dish that's palatable to you for some behavior change, or throw that stone out that's right where you're ready to leap forward and move forward a little bit. And let's get you in all green on all the key areas of preventative health and wellness. So that's a service. I love doing it. It's an outgrowth of what I try to do for myself every day to keep myself well. And I'm saying something else special is my men's health program. So this really fulfilled a role because a lot of guys, they were stuck somewhere, right? They're stuck somewhere between primary care, let's just say, and the urologist, okay? Or maybe the primary care and the orthopedic surgeon, right? And it's like, oh, well, if I have, a bad shoulder, then I got to get my shoulder surgery. But short of that, I'm kind of hanging out here. And oh, if I have prostate cancer, I go see this guy. But other than that, I'm kind of hanging out. So there wasn't really comprehensive and integrated men's health. And I tried to bring that together to say, let's give you like a men's health makeover, right? Let's take some weight off. Let's get your sleep right.
I love that.
Let's get
men's
your
health makeover.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Good. Yeah.
Let's get that little nagging shoulder and knee problem that you had since high school sports activities. Let's get that going, and let's get your diet on point, and let's help with your attitude and your stress levels and your relationships and even your bedroom life. We'll talk about anything we need to talk about, and let me pay attention to you, and we'll give you a men's health makeover and get your mojo back. Guys love that. There's no time and space that they can typically find to talk to a professional about that stuff.
Yeah. I can only imagine there's men who come to you and have probably put up with and struggled and suffered from pain or injuries, like you were talking about, for years. They come and get your help and probably very quickly start to realize, oh, I've been struggling this whole time. Didn't have to. Dr. Turner has the solution for me.
Yeah, best case scenario. Yeah, there are many things like that, and it's very satisfying. It's very satisfying. I'll take a common situation, just throw one out, right? If it's an older guy, let's say in his 60s, he'll 50s, maybe 60s, 70s, he'll come and he'll say, like, I'll say, how's your sleep? Because it's so important, right? That's one of my first lessons, but I'm going to teach them all about sleep. It's like, so by the way, John, how's your sleep? Oh, it's terrible, doc. I get up like 3 times a night. I've been doing that for years. Well, why? Well, I got to use the restroom. I just got to keep getting up. I was like, we can solve that. He's like, really? I was like, yeah, we can solve that. I can solve that, Katie, in a day. Okay. With the right medication, we can get that bladder to act straight and get you uninterrupted sleep in a day. It's immediate effect. And people come back in 2 weeks and like, oh my gosh, I'm so refreshed. I haven't slept this well in decades. I feel so good. Why didn't I see you earlier? I was like, tell a friend. Yeah. What can I say?
Yeah. Dude, tell a friend. Share this podcast. Share Dr. Turner's website, michaelturnermd.com. Right. Go sign up for whatever he has for you. I can tell you from personal experience, when he says he spends time explaining things with you, he means it. I've personally experienced it, and I've witnessed it even here today. So go get in his world and you will be healthier, happier, more energetic because of it. Dr. Turner, thank you so much for being on the show. And for everybody who's listening, this is What's Working Now.